Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpalam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Dravidam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. So with our invocation, try it now without looking at the words and just repeat the line after me. Yata sarvani bhutani, together. Yata sarvani bhutani, pratibhanti stithani cha, pratibhanti stithani cha. Yatraivo bhashamam yanti, yatraivo bhashamam yanti, tasmai satyatmane namaha, tasmai satyatmane namaha. Let's try the whole thing, see how you can do from memory together. Yata sarvani bhutani, pratibhanti stithani cha, yatraivo bhashamam yanti, tasmai satyatmane namaha. It will come. It's a tongue twister for some of us. All right, so Mark, can you help us or someone tell us where we are in the text? I think we finished a section last week.
Page 7. Page 7. It says
41.
4.
We're
it says 4 and then
Shloka 41. Are we still in the first chapter?
Yes, I believe so, but it says 4. It says stage. It says 4, the stages of life are painful.
So hang on. Wait a minute, Justin. So we are on Shloka 41 in the first chapter. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Will you help us out, please, Ganesh?
Svayovasthaha dukkadaha. Dehas purati samsare sopi dukkhaya kevalam nasti deha samashochyo nicho gunabahishkritaha. The body manifests in the world, and it is only for experiencing sorrow. There is nothing more deplorable than the body which is worthless and has no virtue.
So again, Lord Rama is going on continuing his reflection on what he's learned after his journey outside the palace. And again, it echoes to a great degree the whole journey of the Buddha, Siddhartha, before he leaves his royal palace. And he sees that all is dukkha. I heard a wonderful definition of dukkha. Dukkha, which we normally translate as suffering. This fellow was translating it as the disappointment that we feel when we try to get lasting satisfaction through the world. Isn't that a great definition? It's the disappointment that we feel when I think this is what's going to do it, and then it doesn't. So the instrument for all that disappointment is the body. Now, why does the scripture start there? The bija vasana, the seed attachment from which all of egoism spreads, is the belief that I am the body. Now, where does it take place? What actually happens? So let's look a little bit at the technology of ignorance. In the subtle intellect, technically what we call the vijnana maya kosha, the subtle intellect, there is a mechanism wherein in this, the vijnana maya kosha, in the subtle intellect, we attribute, someone is got a background noise, would you please mute unless you're sharing? Thank you. In the Vijnana Maya Kosha, there's this mechanism that attributes to the self the qualities of the body. That's the root of it all. Now, sometimes we think of it as just ideas. I'm tall, I'm short, I'm male, I'm female, I'm gay, I'm straight, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm smart, I'm stupid. But it's more intense than that. I had a dream the other morning. I dreamt I was drunk. I was in a car. I was driving up the mountain. I was thinking, this is not too great an idea because the road on the other side of the mountain is real curvy. And so I'm kind of woozy. I'm going down the road on the other side. I'm having a hard time staying on my side of the road. I'm going, and I wake up. It seems so real. We've all had vivid dreams. But in fact, it's just something my mind projected. And of course, in the dream, the root identification is I think I'm the dream body. This dream, a drunk dream. What's really interesting is I could see perfectly in the dream. Driving a car, I had no trouble seeing. Very different body than in this dream. So one of the strongest attachments that we have as the result of ignorance is this bhavana. Bhavana means an attitude, a feeling, a belief that I am the body. Now, in some of the scriptures, it can seem like they are flesh hating. This is a nasty old body. It's disgusting. Why should you be attached to it? It's just filth. And my take on this is it has to do with who is the target audience. Now, Yoga Vasishtha and almost all of the other Vedantic texts, this is at least 1,000 years old, maybe 1,300 years old, 1,500 years old. In the historical context, it was aimed at young men, almost boys. So they were teenagers. What do teenage boys think about most of the time? Sex. High testosterone levels. They're just driven by it. Girls, of course, are very pure at that age, aren't they? Are they?
Not necessarily.
Hmm?
I guess it depends.
I'm just joking. They think about it too.
Yeah.
But in this historical period, the study of the scriptures was not available to women, and it was also not available to non-Brahmanas. You see, everything's different now. The halls of Vedanta, the doors are wide open to everyone. So we want to look at it with a little bit of understanding of the historical perspective. It's of no value to hate your body. My suggestion, see your body like a vehicle, like a car. Now, some of us have, Honda Civics. Others of us have BMWs. But you still do the same thing. You want to change the oil. You want to rotate the tires. If the engine light comes on, you take it to the shop, you get it fixed. Keep it clean. The same with the body. There's no virtue in torturing the body. You will not be free from body identification by beating up your body. Doesn't work. And in the life of the Buddha, we see that. He tried, great physical austerities. Didn't work. The way we deal with attachment to the body, identification with the body, is through insight. First of all, when you were a child, you had a little body. You went through adolescence, your body changed. Now you're adults, your bodies have changed again. So it's very clear there is something that is the knower of the changes in the body. So at least intellectually, we can begin to understand I am not the body. Viveka, discrimination. Then vairagya. We want to give up our attachment to enjoyments gained through the senses. Does that mean I can't enjoy anything, Jim? No. When the situation is conducive, the mind will be happy. When the situation is non-conducive, the mind will be unhappy. Based on the force of the past. But don't get attached. Let it go. Do your best, let go of the rest. As my friend Velocity was saying to me on the phone the other day. So our definition of vairagya that we get in Viveka Chudamani, which I like. Well, first of all, let's back up. First, we get the definition of viveka, that firm conviction in the intellect that Brahman alone is real, the ground of being, and that the phenomenal world is mithya. What that means is illusory. You can start with the understanding that the phenomenal world is transient. Everything is temporary, or it's a conditioned reality, understanding that it's just consciousness appearing as name and form. That'll work. It's an understanding that what really will satisfy the human heart is resting in the self, not cash and prizes. That materialism is a losing strategy for happiness. I have a friend who's reading a book by the Dalai Lama, and the way he says it, in America, everybody wants to be materialistic to get happiness. And it may work for short periods of time, but then a life crisis happens. And your car and your tennis racket and your tickets to Europe and how many shoes you have in the closet and how many sweaters in the dresser, none of that is of any value in a life crisis. Problem here is attachment. Now, for young people, the strongest attachment is usually the hot body on the other side of the room. So we will get meditations that help us deal with our intense attraction to bodies. So first of all, it's our own. Are we in the mirror getting all pricked up and looking good, got a six pack, all that kind of stuff? Why should you have a stick pack when you can have a cake? That's what I always say. But then it's other people's bodies. So what we're going to get is what I call the dissection meditation. So if you see a woman with really beautiful breasts, wouldn't you love to just cut them open and fondle the mammary glands and the lymph glands? Or you see some guy with a six-pack. Ooh, wouldn't it be better just to flay that skin and play with the intestines? As soon as we start to unpack the body a bit, it doesn't have nearly the appeal. And then, of course, one of my favorites, just don't wash it for a week or wipe it, and tell me how pleasing the body is. Actually, it's only tolerable with an enormous amount of attention and care. So my suggestion is we don't want to get to a place of disgust for the body. We want to get to a place of neutrality with the body. Most importantly, to see I am not the body. I've always the knower. Any thoughts or questions about this before we proceed with the verses? All right, next verse, please.
Kim Shriya, Kim Charajyena, Kim kayena kimihitaihi dinai katipayaireva kala sarvam nikrantati. Of what avail is wealth? Of what use is kingdom? And of what avail are body and things sought for? Even with a certain number of days, time destroys everything.
Yes. So here he is talking about understanding the impermanence of everything. Think our attachments through. So this is one I always like to do for young people. Would you really prefer a hot boyfriend or girlfriend? Or would you prefer a long-term relationship? Those are mutually exclusive conditions. You may have a hot boyfriend or girlfriend today when you're young, but what are they going to be like in 40, 50 years? They're going to be old and wrinkly like the rest of the people who make it that far. Or I will say all relationships end in death or divorce. That's what you have to look forward to. I was talking with a student and she was, my heart's broken. He was so mean to me. How long were you two together? It was a long time. It was 6 months. You think that's pain? Talk to someone who's been married for 50, 60 years, who's lost a spouse. That's pain. All relationships end in death or divorce. Those are your only options. If you're lucky, you both get hit by the same bus at the same time. But that's rare. Does that mean not to get married? No. It means eyes wide open. Don't expect something different from the world than it can give. Someone goes to the casino and they win $1,000 at the slot machine. Guess what usually happens next? What do you think?
They lose it all.
They go back again and again and again. And at the end of the year, they've lost $5,000, $10,000. Oh, but I had a jackpot, you know. We keep trying to repeat the moment. So listen very carefully. Happiness from the world and suffering from the world are the same thing. The richer the happiness, the more intense the sorrow. When you lose it, and you will, because everything passes. So again, there's nothing wrong with the world. What's wrong is I have an unrealistic expectation. I think that the world can deliver something, but in fact it doesn't. And then where we have problems is we compare our insides to other people's outsides. I was talking with a young man today. He was just filled with envy. His brother has a big house and they make a lot of money and they go on vacations. The fellow to whom I was talking just lives in an apartment in Alameda. It's a beautiful apartment, by the way. He has no idea what kind of suffering his brother goes through. Anybody here have a big house and felt miserable ever? Big houses don't make you happy. They don't make you unhappy either. So here Ram is saying, what is the value of going after the things of this world? Because it all falls through our fingers like sand. Why bother? Now, this is not the end point. This is just, at this point, his understanding. This ennui, this boredom, this dissatisfaction with the way in which we've been living life. Going on, next verse.
Raktamam samayasyasya sabahyaabhyantaram mune nashaika dharmino bruhi kaivakayasya ramyata. Of this body constituted of blood and flesh, in and out, and which has only destruction as its characteristic. What is the beauty? Tell me, O sage.
So you can look online and see all these young people. What's this, the slogan? Youth is wasted on the young. All young people are really beautiful, and few of them know it. They have self-esteem around their ankles, and it passes so quickly. My experience, as you get older, time speeds up. Oh man, you get old so fast. You get old so fast. Your eyes go, your hearing goes, your hair goes, your waistline goes. You go really hard to keep it up. But Kala, all devouring time, eats us all. I had a student come to me and he was reading some book about the yogis of the Himalayas, Raja yogis who lived 400 years. He says, oh, I want to have that. I said, well, first of all, you've got to quit having sex and redirect that bindu, that seminal fluid. So you raise the kundalini and stuff like that. And that kind of disappointed him because he likes having sex. And then I said, now, what happens when you're 401? She said, I don't know. I said, you're dead. You're just as dead as someone who dies at 70 or 80. In a larger scheme of things, over a period of 1,000 years or 10,000 years, what's the difference between 90 years and 400? So we're here for a very short period of time. Yoga says, don't waste time. Use chose this incarnation intelligently. Next verse.
Shaktira padastrishna mukata mudha buddhita gritnuta lolata dainyam sarvam balye pravartate. Incapacity, calamities, thirst, dumbness, perplexed or dull intellect, covetousness, restlessness, and dejection. All these exist in childhood.
Yes. So when you're a baby, poop goes in the hair, everything goes in the mouth. Wah, all the time, frustration, don't know anything. I don't know about you people, but there's this mythology of happy childhood. There are moments of happiness, but a lot of it is frustration. Craving mommy's attention and not getting enough of it, etc. So here he says, childhood is not immune from dukkha, suffering. Next verse.
Amedhya eva ramate bala kauleyako yatha shaishave guruto bhitihi madhrita pitrastatha. The child sports in filth just as a dog. In boyhood, there is fear from the preceptor, the mother, and the father.
So, the dog plays in mud and dirt and stuff like that. Children do the same thing. Left to their own devices, they sport in more literal forms of filth. But then you grow up and you become a young person. And then you're bullied by your older brother or sister. Teachers are telling you, stop it. I don't know about you, but I think it was either the 4th grade or the 5th grade with my desk facing the wall because I was so disruptive in school. Any of you ever have that issue? I've always been a troublemaker. Bullies, anybody here bullied as a kid? Fear. I got so upset once. I think this was like 3rd grade. There was a spelling test. I threw up all over my spelling book. And there's no joy in being a young person for most of us. That has its share of sorrow. Next verse.
Janato jyeshtha balacha shaishavam bhayamandiram vistirnopi prasannapi pavanyapi yauvane mati kalushatam meti pravrishiva tarangini. From men and elder children, boyhood becomes an abode of fear. In youth, even though the intellect is broad, clear, and pure, it becomes turbid, just as a river in the rainy season.
Yes. So finally, when you make it out of middle school with all its fears, you finally make it into high school. Intellect is clear. Some of us at that age, 12, 13, are oftentimes deeply attracted to religion or spirituality. then guess what happens? Hormones. They wreck everything. All you can think about is. Were you raised in this country, Shilpa?
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, when I was a kid, the teenage girls, they would have their notebooks, their binders. They would write the boy's name they were keen on. Johnny, 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 all over their notebook. Did they do that in like ninth grade?
Yeah.
Do you think about it now? All the young boys, it's all they could think about. All they could think about. All that maturity of the intellect, purity of understanding, gone. Because we become turbid, is the term that the scripture uses. Swollen. Robs us of our peace completely. The tyranny of raging hormones. Yearning, yearning, yearning for connection. So hard to make. Next verse.
Yada tada param kotim adhyarohati yauvanam valaganti sajvaraha kama tada nashaya kevalam. Whenever youth rises up to its climax, feverish passions dance, then only destruction results.
So if you're not careful as a youth, you're going to get yourself in trouble. There used to be a joke in the Catholic Church. The first baby can come anytime. All the rest, for some reason, take 9 months. Meaning, girl comes home, Daddy, I'm pregnant. Who's the boy? They have the talk, you're going to marry her. No, but I wanted to go to college. You're going to marry her and support this family. So many life dreams get wrecked because kids unthinkingly head down the road to becoming household. Now, this can be put off to some degree because of modern science. We have birth control now. But back when the scripture was there. And kids oftentimes make terrible choices in terms of partners. So here, all the life dreams, especially if we have these yearnings for spirituality, they get wrecked when families start to happen. Then you've got responsibilities. And it's about making a living, supporting your wife and children, or for a woman. Now you've got a family, career, children. It's a lot harder. Any thoughts on this? Isn't it interesting? Life hasn't changed too much in 1,300 years.
Well, I was thinking I'm
Pardon
not
me?
much different than I was thinking I wasn't that much different than a child, actually, if you're talking about issues with, partners or time or, even pooping hair, I guess. I don't know. But yes, it seems like I still have a lot of these difficulties and imperfections.
Yeah.
But
Going on, next verse.
Devandyaste mahatmanah ta eva purusha bhuvi ye sukhena samuttirnaah sadho yauvana sankatat. O sage, they alone are to be worshipped. They are the great souls, and they alone are men in this world who have easily crossed over the perils of youth.
Yes. So those who are able to move through this treacherous time of life, to get established in a swadharma, or if they choose spirituality, they're not caught up in the responsibilities of family. Those who've made it through bad choices in relationships and avoided them. Those are few, and those are blessed who make it through. And we haven't even begun to go down the road of kids go to college, drugs, alcohol, all sorts of things which can absolutely wreck a life. Can absolutely wreck a life. So it's a blessing to make it through that very difficult period of life. Next verse.
Mamsa paschalikayastu yantralolenga panjare snaivasthi granthishalinyaah striyah kimiva shobhanam. In the string-tossed bodily cage of the puppet doll of flesh, endowed with muscles, bones, and joints of a woman or man, what good is possibly there?
Oh, I love this metaphor. The body as a puppet doll. So it's as if our prarabdha karma is like a puppet master above us, pulling all the strings. Driven, tyrannized hither and thither by uncontrollable desires and aversions. Not just the attractions. How many young people come home and they're just wrecked because so-and-so dumped me? Or the crowd that they want to belong to won't accept them. I used to jokingly say that a fraternity or a sorority in college is a social organization which exists for the sole purpose of excluding others. So we get our hearts broken as well as getting caught up in these things. Going on, next verse.
Tvang mam saraktabashpambu prathak kritva vilochanam samalokayaram yam chet kim mudha parimuhyasi. See if it is pleasing after separating the skin, flesh, blood, tears, eyes, etc. Why are you deluded in vain?
So-and-so has such beautiful eyes. Maybe he can pop them out of his head and let me play with them. So understanding the body for what it is. I've told this story before. This is going back to the early 70s, like 73, 74, something like that. I was living in Berkeley. And this great Tibetan Lama, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, came to UC Berkeley. And he was going to be doing tantric workshops. Ooh, tantra. We're going to have really good sex. That's what all the kids were thinking. Place was packed. So he goes in, and they were in lecture halls at UC. Turns down the light, and for a week, for 8 hours a day, they watched films of autopsies. Why? So you can get through all the denial about what a body is. Not to be hated. Now, we are hardwired to find the greatest sensual pleasure from doing the mufti pufti. Drive so much of this. Even old people still think about it. But what we're saying here is we need to be able to disidentify from the physical body. From it stem all my attachments and identifications. This is the bija vasana. Bija means seed. Seed attachment. And the most difficult to break. All right, going on.
Yasya stri tasya bhogecha nistri kasya kva bhogabhuh striyam tyaktva jagat tyaktam jagat tyaktva sukhi bhavet. Only the person who has a spouse lusts after conjugal pleasure. For one without a spouse, fair is the field for enjoyment. If lust for women is abandoned, the world or worldly bondage is abandoned. Having forsaken worldly attachment, one becomes happy.
Yes. So Swamiji used to say, if sex were satisfying, we'd only do it once. Sex is not bad. In fact, your sexual powers are God-given, not to be despised, nor to be used lightly. And in fact, the sexual energy is the life force. It's the root of the Kundalini power. But anybody who has gone into a monastic kind of life, one of the things you find is in a comparatively short period of time, it goes away. I had a fellow who, he was the dean of Grace Cathedral. And he used to do spiritual direction. He had advanced degrees in doing spiritual direction. And one of the things he said was that for most of the people, the nuns and the priests and the monks that he worked with, celibacy was not the biggest issue, it was obedience. Most people had a big issue of being told what to do. So if you are a householder, be chaste. Chaste does not mean not have sex. That means respect your vows. Sex is part of being able to explore and express intimacy. But you know if it's problematic for you. And if you want to talk about it privately, I don't want to embarrass anybody or anything like that. I'd be more than happy to chat with you. Not most, all of the rishis, the men who wrote the Vedas, the Upanishads, were householders. They had spouses, they had children. Nothing wrong with it. But you know if you're tyrannized by it in an unhealthy way. All right, next one,
Jim, I have a question.
please.
I mean, in this verse, in the translation that we read, it says that if lust is abandoned, then worldly bondage is abandoned, and having forsaken that, one becomes happy. So one thing I don't understand is why so much emphasis is placed just on lust. I mean, even if somebody does abandon that, it's not as though that's the only source of worldly attachment or suffering, right? There are so many other things that create suffering in the mind.
And if you've listened to what I've been saying, that's what I've been saying all along. So lust is when I want something from somebody else. Let's broaden the word. You have
I
what
see.
I want. And
So you're saying that we should, sorry, please go on.
So if we go through our life from that selfish viewpoint, even in sex, frankly, you're going to find your enjoyment will be greater if you're focused on pleasuring your partner.
So you're saying that in this verse, we should interpret lust in a broader sense of just wanting something from another rather
And
than just physical.
go back to what I said at the beginning. Who was the target audience?
I see, yeah.
Target audience for the text was young teenage boys who were brahmanas.
Right.
And if they were going to become swamis, they had to deal with being tyrannized by sex. But even today, I can't tell you how many married people I know, and a fellow comes to me and he says, oh, you know, I look at 2 or 3 hours of pornography every day. No, that's unhealthy. Or a woman, she comes to me and says, whenever I get stressed out, I pull out my dildo and I masturbate. You know, if that is what you do and you're using it as a way to fix things in life, then it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy. That making sense, Shweta?
Yeah, I think for me, the target audience thing really sort of put it in place, because I was wondering why so much emphasis. And you, as you said before as well, that, you know, one has to think of the audience to which this is.
And there is a strain that can be interpreted as flesh hating. And I don't think that's
yes, right,
healthy.
right.
I don't think
Right.
that's healthy.
What do you mean by flesh hating? Like celibacy or something? Like all
No,
sex is evil?
flesh hating. Bodies are bad. Sex is bad. Enjoyment's
Yeah, that's what I'm
bad.
saying. Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
going to sleep on a bed of nails. That's going to fix it. I'm going to starve myself and only have one meal a week. That's going to fix it. I'm going to sleep out in the elements. And, you know, if you're drawn to doing this stuff, knock yourself out, but it will not free us. You can't free yourself from attachment to the body by torturing the body. It does not work. And it's not just in India. Any of you know what a cilia is? In the Roman Catholic Church, it's a band that some monks and priests will put around their thigh with thorns on the inside to dig into their thigh. That's supposed to make them not think about sex and to think more about God. It's stupid and it doesn't work.
It's like when they would whip themselves for having bad thoughts in the Catholic
Yes,
Church. You know,
yes.
yes.
The flagellants in the Middle Ages during the plague. These groups of people would go from town to town and in rent garments with these flails, and they'd flag themselves and believe that if they tortured their body enough, this would make up for the sins, and that's why God had visited the plague. It's crazy. It's crazy. But then in 2021, I had a gal come to me and say, you know, my husband had a motorcycle fall on his leg and he broke his leg. Are we being punished for something karmically? Same idea, ultimately. You know, they didn't deliberately harm themselves, but they were harmed. Was that, you know, karmic punishment for some sin? No. He broke his leg because a motorcycle fell on him. Bas. So please listen to what I'm saying. See the physical body like a car. It is a vehicle. Put it in its proper place. Take care of it the way you take care of your car. What happens if you don't take care of your car? I knew a young man and he never changed the oil in his Morris Mini. Guess what happened to it? Totally screwed up the engine. He sold it for a song. Why? Because he never changed the oil. If you don't take care of your body, believe me, you'll be thinking about it all the time. So the idea in this work is to withdraw our attention from the body. Don't eat too much, don't eat too little. Don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little. Don't have too much sex, don't have too little sex. Take the middle path. And the idea that I teach is you want to develop the deeply rooted idea that I am not the body. Does that make it a little clearer, Shweta?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And this isn't the only text that goes down this road. And I think it can be terribly misunderstood by people. But again, if you understand that you're dealing with horny teenage boys, these are good techniques to help them control the tyranny of testosterone poisoning. All right, going on.
Aparyaptam hi balatvam balat pibati yauvanam cha jara paschat pashya karkashatam mithah. Insufficient is childhood. It is forcefully devoured by youth. The latter in turn is devoured by old age. See this mutual cruelty.
So you're a hottie, you've got a great bod, you have a lot of beautiful hair, your skin is plump. Don't worry, it will pass. I love it when people say, oh, 60 is the new 40. I'm getting some work done. It's only temporary. Youth, no matter how beautiful a person is, they're devoured by old age. It's the inevitability. There's nothing wrong with that. Going on, next verse.
Dushpreksham jaratham deenam heenam gunaparakramaihi gardho hyabhyeti saulasam upabhoktum na shakyate hridayam dahyate nunam shaktidausthyena vardhake. Though bad to look at, old, miserable, devoid of efficacy or courage, desire approaches him with splendor, but he's unable to enjoy. In old age, the heart burns indeed due to his poor capacity to enjoy.
Yes. So there's the story of the young girl goes to her great grandmother who's in her 90s and says, Gran, when does a woman's sexual desire leave her? The old lady goes, well, when it happens, I'll let you know. Old men whose nether parts won't even function anymore. But a person's predominant sex organ is between their ears. It's the mind. And here the scripture is laughing at creepy old men who still want to have a fling. God knows the news is filled with people like that. And it's not just sex. People want one more thrill, one more fancy car, one more win at the casino. Still trying to suck something out of life, thinking, well, maybe it'll be a little bit better the next time. When in fact, what aging is about is losing stuff. And you get sannyas at gunpoint. Getting old. Lose things. So if you're smart, you learn what we call acceptance. You find that you have a peace that is not of this world. Going on, next verse.
Kala Vaibhav. Kvachidva vidyate yesham samsare sukha bhavana akhu tantumivashesham kala tamapi krintati. In some cases, where the sense of happiness in worldly life exists for a few, time completely destroys even that, as a rat destroys thread.
So the student says to the teacher, but you're wrong, Jim. There are people who do enjoy life. They have a family. They are deeply in love. They do like their jobs. They travel. They have a nice house and they like it. What's wrong with this? There's nothing wrong with it. But I promise you, time will catch up with them. I'm thinking of this woman, her name was Alma, very good friend of my friend Susan. She used to love to go to the opera and the symphony and the ballet, and had a beautiful 2-story home in San Francisco. And then she got too old to go up and down stairs. She was confined to a wheelchair. She was quite old. No more opera, no more symphony, no more ballet, no more second floor in her own house. She couldn't even go up and down the steps to get out of her house without assistance. That's life. Getting old is not for sissies. Next verse.
Mahatam apino devaha paripalayati kshanam kala kavalita shesha vishvo vishvatmatam gatah. God does not protect for a moment even the happiness of great men. Time, having swallowed up as a mouthful the entire universe, has attained the nature of the Supreme Being, or the soul of the universe.
Yes. So in Gita, Krishna says, I am all devouring time. You see those pictures in some of the illustrated versions of Gita where there's Krishna with this big maw and all the people are going in where he eats them all and they're stuck on his teeth and stuff like that. Or if you see images of the mother, Kali. Kali actually is the feminine of Kala. Her name means time. She's got skulls around her neck. Having a physical body is a sexually transmitted condition, and it's always fatal. That's there for us. Okay, we will stop here. I know this is very depressing. Oh my God, I'm not sure I want to stay studying this scripture. It's pretty grim. But we need to understand that real success in the spiritual life is only available to those with mature vairagya. What is vairagya? That desire, I mean, we accomplish it overnight, to give up attachment to all enjoyments gained through the senses. And that desire to give up identification with any form of self, starting from the physical body up to and including the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning I'm powerful. I'm a Putin or a Trump or a Xi. Giving up all the attachments. And it could be being willing to give up your attachment to being head of the sewing circle or the bridge club. Doesn't have to be a great political figure. All right, we'll end here this evening. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Oh, that's
Can I get the verse that we finished it? Jim? You know?
Thank you all.
Yep. Is anyone there that knows the verse?
56.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, Jim.
Bye bye. See you all next week.
Bye, Jim.